So we're here in Exchange Road in Couva, and I'm getting the mangrove crabs. Up all the market stuff, and now we're gonna pick up the most important thing, which is the crab. So we're gonna go to Exchange Road in Couva to get the crab. We're gonna get mangrove crab today, and that's my favorite type because it's really nice and sweet. Earlier Kevin's mom got some blue crabs for me, but even though blue crabs are really tasty, they're so small and you don't get much meat out of them, and they're not as sweet as the mangrove crabs. So come join us as we go get some mangrove crabs, and I'll show you how to cook it, how to clean it and cook it and everything else. So enjoy. So we're here for the crab. These are the mangrove crabs.
Hey.
Morning. How are you selling the crab?
60 and 50.
Okay. So we're here in Exchange Road in Couva, and I'm getting the mangrove crabs. So what's your name?
Daniel.
So Danielle here is gonna clean it for us. So the first step is to pull out the back. A little duck walking in the back.
Ate.
So now she's cracking the gundy and she's cutting out the hairy legs. See how they're scraping it? That's to get the hair out. And then you cut off any excess with the hair. And you cut the top of the gundy so that when you cook it, all the seasonings go inside. Yeah. So when they finish clean it like this, now it's just to scrub it and to wash it.
Watch your face, eh? Watch your face, eh?
Okay, thank you, you too. So we have the crabs here, and Danielle cut off the hairy legs for us, and Seeta, she cut the tips of the gundy. So what we're gonna do now is do some fine cleaning. So because these are mangrove crabs and they lived in really muddy waters, we have to make sure we scrub all that mud and that gunk out. So you'll definitely need a brush. And this brush saw a lot of action. You see how it's looking? But it's gonna get the job done for us. So you can use an old toothbrush if you have one. Any brush is fine, just something that can get the gunk out. And you'll also need a scissors, seafood scissors preferably, because this is very sharp and it can cut through hard shells. So I got this on Amazon. I'll leave the link for you if you're interested. And if you're not using a scissors, you can just use a chopper and a chopping board to just chop off any excess shell or anything. So to start, I'm just gonna run some water just to get off any heavy debris, any heavy mud. So the first step is to pull the gills out. These are the gills here. So you just want to pull those out. And I have a really funny story to tell you all. Since I've been staying in this apartment, I've been cleaning a lot of meat in this sink. So chicken, lots of seafood, so lots of crab and shrimp and everything. And the water goes outside to water the plants, and there are a lot of fig trees around. And what happened is that the excess nutrients that's been going to the plant, it just started to grow rapidly, and the plant grew over the pipe that sends the water out, and the sink got clogged. And so we thought that maybe somebody sent food down the sink or something. And we started to plunge at the sink. Nothing was going down. The water was just stagnant. It wasn't going anywhere. So we had to cut the pipe underneath the sink, and it still didn't have any food or anything stuck there. So my brother, he traced the pipe back to where it leads outside, and when he went, the moko tree was on the pipe. So it grew on the pipe and bent it in a way where no water could come out. So it was really crazy. So what you want to do is scrub. You want to scrub the excess mud out. And if you see any guts or anything in there, you want to pull it out. If you don't see anything that looks like meat, the meat is supposed to look like this. If you see anything like greenish, yellowish, just pull it out. Or any mud. You could even scrub it. And if you choose to leave the hairy legs on, take a knife and you want to scrape it back and forth to get the hair out. So you want to make sure and scrub in between. And as you go, you want to keep rinsing it out. And if you want to cut off anything further, you could just use your scissors or your knife. And you just cut the tip. Just in case there's any mud or anything in there. And cut off any excess hair. Another thing you can do is if you have children eating and you don't want them to get cut, you just take your scissors and you cut off these sharp protrusions here. And you can even take your knife and do that. So the crabs are nice and clean now, and I scrubbed off most of the mud and any excess pieces or any guts or anything. I took those out. So if you notice, you'll see them moving a bit. That's just their reflex, muscle reflex. So how I like to wash it now is I add a little bit of baking soda. You can also add baking powder, but baking soda is way stronger. So it's gonna take out any excess dirt that's in the crab that we probably couldn't get with the brush. If you put in baking powder, you'll need to put a little more, but baking soda is way stronger. And I'm just gonna squeeze a lime, or you can use lemon. And you're just gonna add some water. And let it soak for about 5 minutes. Now I'm going to show you how I like to make coconut dumplings. It's my favorite type of dumplings to make. I usually don't make just plain flour. I always put coconut in it. So I have a pot here with my flour, and in my apartment I don't have a lot of dishes. So I'm just using this pot that was left in the apartment. I'm just going to use this pot to make my dough in. And just remember that all the correct measurements and ingredients are going to be in the description box below for you. So you want to start with salt, and you want to salt it good because you want the dumplings to have some flavor also. You must have a little brown sugar in there, just for a little sweetness. Of course, you can use white sugar if you don't have brown sugar. Another great addition would be some grated carrots, or you can even use some grated cassava. So you're just gonna mix everything. And now I like to go in with a bit of coconut milk. And if you don't have fresh coconut milk, you can just use the powdered coconut milk and just dissolve it in some water, or you can use the canned coconut milk, whatever you have on hand. And if you run out of coconut milk, just add a little more water to pull the dough together. So once you have a nice soft dough, now just cover it with a damp paper towel or tea towel and set it aside. You don't want to over knead it because we still want the dumplings to be nice and soft. We don't want it to be too stiff. So you just want a soft, like a medium to soft dough. So this is good. Don't over knead it too much. And just set it aside until we're ready for it. So here are my other ingredients to season up the crab and to chunky the pot. So I have garlic. Here I have a regular Scotch bonnet pepper, and this is a scorpion. I'm gonna put just a little piece in the seasoning. I have some seasoning peppers or pimento peppers. These are really flavorful, especially when you're making green seasoning, or if you don't eat pepper, this gives your dish a lovely flavor. And I have some onion. And here are the herbs that I'll use to season the crab as well as to garnish it. So I have some beni or bandhania, also called culantro. I'll leave all the names in the description box below for you all, as I always do. I have some chive here, or kalyan. You might also know it as green onion. And then the thyme was tied to the chive as well, so we'll add that just for a little extra flavor. So I'll use half of this beni in my seasoning, and I'll keep the next half to chop up and add to the crab while it's cooking. So here I have the most important part of this dish. This is our spice mixture. I have some curry powder, and if you don't want to use the extra spices that I'm using today, you can just use your favorite curry powder alone. So if you've been following me for a while, you know I love to add some roasted ground geera, some black amchar masala, and some turmeric to my curry powder. And I just like to mix that up. And of course you can add or omit any spices you don't like, or you do your curry how you're accustomed to. So this is how I like to do curry. And because I'm gonna be adding the dumplings to the crab, and I'm gonna cook everything in one pot, I'm compensating for that, so I'm adding more curry powder, just so that it doesn't taste watered down. So I like using the mini chopper for this. You can use a food processor, blender, you can use your mortar and pestle, you can chop this by hand. It's totally up to you how you like your seasonings. So I'm just gonna add some garlic. And I like lots of garlic. I chopped up the pimentos, or the seasoning peppers. Here I have a piece of scorpion pepper, and I have my Scotch bonnet pepper. Now I'm just gonna break up the shadow beni. And now it's time to chop this up. So this is what the finished green seasoning looks like. So the crabs are ready to go now. I drained out the baking soda and the lime water. Now it's nice and clean because I rinsed it a few times after that. Now it looks nice and clean, doesn't have too much of a fresh scent. So now it's time to season it. First I'm adding salt. And now I'll add the seasonings. And usually I use my hands, but because I put that scorpion pepper in there, I cannot do that because I have to play with baby Zane, and I don't want baby Zane to get any pepper on his hands. So, see how lovely that looks? I wish y'all could smell it. That pepper is strong. Right, so you really don't have to let it marinate, but if you want to, you can definitely put this in the fridge and cook it the next day, but I suggest that you do it right away, especially while the crabs are fresh. That's the best time to eat it, because seafood goes bad pretty quickly, so you want to cook it really quickly. So the last thing we have to do, actually before seasoning, you're supposed to do this, but I forgot. So what you want to do is take a knife, or not a knife, a scissors, or take a pestle or something and just crack the gundy or the clove. So remember I said I didn't want to get pepper on my hands. Well, I'm forced to now. So I'm using this stone. I just want to crack it like this, just so that the seasonings and the curry could get into the clove. I got this Ceylon Lura set in Shark River, by the way. So you see, you don't want to crack it all the way, but just enough so that it cracks, so that the seasonings and the curry could get inside. So I'm gonna make the dumplings now. I just floured my surface here. And I'm gonna make these dumplings small and circular. You can do them however you like. You can just pinch piece off of the dough and shape it however you like. Or you can cut them in squares. So it doesn't have to be perfect or anything, but this thickness is good for me because I don't want too much of a thin dumpling. So I'm using this glass as like the stencil. So I'm just gonna cut out you can can cut some in squares like this, however you like to do it. So the water is boiling now. There's salt and some oil in there. The oil is going to prevent it from sticking together. So I'm just going to add my dumpling dough in. So you have to make sure the water is boiling. So you want to boil the dumplings before you chunky the crab, because this is going to take a while to boil. It's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. So we'll chunky the crab as soon as this is nearly finished boiling. So the dumplings are nearly ready. They just have about 5 more minutes. So I'm going to chunky the crab now. And I did some of them really thin, and then I did some thick for those who like it that way. Once the onions start to get translucent, add the garlic in. And this is optional, but I'm adding some curry leaves or carapili leaves. I just broke them up a little bit. And now I'm adding some hot peppers and some seasoning or pimento peppers. And at this point, I like to add a few fenugreek or meaty seeds. Just a few. And you don't want these to get too brown because they taste really burnt in the food if it gets too dark brown. Add the sprig of thyme. And I have the heat on low right now because I don't want the garlic to burn or the meaty seeds to get too black. Now I'm adding in my curry mixture and all the spices. And I'm not going to let this toast too much. When I make seafood, I prefer to add the water in right away. So right away I'm going in with some water to make a slurry. So you just want the curry and the spices to cook for a bit until this slurry becomes very greeny. So now you can crank your heat up a little bit just to get this process going a little bit quicker. Once the slurry becomes very greeny and the texture is like this, now it's time to add the crab in. Make sure you get all the seasonings out of the bowl. You can't waste any of the seasonings. So it's coated with that lovely curry sauce. I'm just going to leave it to fry down or to chunky for just about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll add some sauce to it. Now I added some water to the bowl to get all the seasonings out, and I'm going to add that to the. And you want to add enough to cover the crab. So as you can see, we have a nice bubble going on here, and the shell turned red. See how the shell turned red? That's what you're looking for. So right now all the seasonings and the curry and everything are soaking into the meat. So I'm just really excited to eat this. So it's been about 10 minutes now. And I don't want to add the dumplings in too late. I want it to still cook in the crab sauce and absorb all the curry flavor. So I'm going to add the dumplings in now. You want to strain it straight out of the pot that it was boiling in and just add it straight to this pot. So it's been boiling for about 15 minutes and the sauce is getting nice and thick. And of course, if you wanted to add some coconut milk, you could do so. For this recipe, I wanted to keep it chatak, as the older folks would say, more the curry flavor. Since we shared a recipe already with the coconut milk, I thought this one was good to share also. Because this is how I prefer to eat curry crab. So the sauce has a nice texture to it. It's not too runny and it's not too thick. And as it cools, it'll thicken up a little bit more too, because we need sauce to eat the crab with. So I'm gonna turn it off, and you want to taste it for salt or seasonings or anything and add accordingly. To finish it, I'm adding some chopped chive or scallion or green onion, and here I have some chopped bandhania or chadon. And that's how I like to make my curry crab and dumplings.